we often don't, we did a good job, I think, today of celebrating our people who have been in the military, and I think it's a wonderful thing to do, and I'm glad I can be a part of that celebration. Also, I think that we need to take time to celebrate the people in our lives who have made the big difference, because some have made a greater difference than others. And it's very, very important that we do that, because as I look back on my own life, I am satisfied that I have been a blessing to some people, and some of those same people I've been less than a blessing to. It's the nature of life and the challenge of always being the best that we can be, even though we get frustrated at times. But when it comes to our children and the joy that they bring, they just remind me of a special love, sometimes unconditional love, that we should all have. And I celebrate that now. I didn't actually let Shelby get up here. I was scared if she did, I'd never get her down. And so I want us to continue on with Ruth, and should really be Naomi and Ruth and Boaz, and it's a great story that we're talking about. And in our overview, I like that at first we saw the hope of leaving Bethlehem and going to Moab and what might happen, and then the reality there of not being a year or two there. Elimelech and Naomi and their two boys, but about 10 years in the death of Elimelech and the two boys. And here's a woman over 3,000 years ago in a pagan world with no support. Now always remember, and I can see it on my papers at Duke right now, where they would write, do not read 20th century theology in the first century church. You may be anywhere today with our rights and human rights and on and on and on, but honey, back then a man was the man, and women had to succumb and depend on men for everything. And here's a woman in a foreign land with no support. And now she's got these two daughter-in-laws. She tells them, you know, y'all stay, and I'm going back home. I'm going back. She gets there and she is mad with the whole wide world. There's a lot of language that could describe this, but I'll simply say she was very, very upset. She had been done wrong, she felt like. Nothing in life that she had hoped for happened. And she gets back home, oh, isn't it nice Naomi's come out? Don't call me Naomi. Call me Myra. I'm mad at God, and I'm mad at the world. Well, I'm bitter, I think the Bible says. You know, life doesn't always come forth like we want it to. And so what is it going to make out of us? I've always said, and I got to make sure I say this nicely so Ted won't get on me after service. In life, there's some so-and-sos, but the worst thing they can do is make one out of you. Did I say that pretty nice, Ted? Ted's my attorney, y'all. I want you to know that. And my concern is that I'm not that kind of person to anybody, but I think I have been. It's sometimes we are the least we can be rather than the most we can be. That's why I want those children here every week, and I want y'all to speak to them. Find the right ways to love them and care for them. I want them to be safe here. I want them to learn the stories of Jesus here. And they're doing that. You know? I try to keep Shelby and Ashbury away from their daddy as much as I can and close to their mama, but things just happen like they happen, all right? Just making sure y'all are listening. So when I heard that you, Donna, I love you, honey. What in the world were you thinking about making him Joseph in the drama? Huh? That was a weak moment, Donna. Huh? Oh, Lord. All right, for our benediction, we're going to sing what? I'm through. America the Beautiful. And so, the good thing that Naomi does, she gets turned around in spite of all the bad and all the negative that's happened in her life for 10 years. She finally gets her radar turned from Moab back to Bethlehem. And as she heads back to Bethlehem and winds up taking Ruth with her, then she's headed back to a blessing. She's heading back to that promised land where God's people will embrace a bitter woman that has not done anything wrong, but nothing but wrong has happened to her. And it happens that way. And it's easy because in a pagan land, she'd be down and she'd remain down because no one would ever lift her back up. And so she headed back to a place she could get blessed. I want this to be a reminder to you, even when you don't feel positive about everything in your life, don't let that prevent you from taking some positive steps in your life. I think about my friend, what's the matter with you, son? You kept going over there and you wouldn't stand here. Dr. Stedman, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Stedman, he reminded me so much of Naomi in this, because he had every reason in the world to be bitter at the world and bitter all about the world because of his circumstance in life. And yet he got on a bicycle and rode 10 miles with cardboard in his shoes because there were holes in the soles. And he said, I believe y'all have a check here for me. His books and his tuition, he was $1 short and he didn't have $1. He had to go home and find one. And the world was pulling at him in the ways that it did. And he could have easily wound up bitter at the world. But he was moving toward a blessing. And God has blessed his life, but he has done his part in that. And he loves Jesus, and he prays for every one of you by name every day. Taking positive steps in a difficult, hard time is often not very easy. But that's what she did. Another reason for the change in Naomi's life was having a wonderful daughter-in-law. And that would be Ruth. And she and Ruth connected, and Naomi gave her 2 chances to stay behind in her homeland with her family. She said, no, I want your God to be my God, and I want your life to be my life. And she headed on with Naomi where she did. I think that Ruth wanted to live with God's people. I think in spite of the pagan, even human sacrifice that they practiced where she was, I think she knew there was something better and that Naomi was taking her to the promised land. Oh, it didn't seem like it at the time. Not at all. It didn't seem like it was a place that would be hers in the ways that it became. But she, in some way and somehow, decided, I'm going to go with you. And we're just going to see how this plays out. Because I want to be with you. I want your God to be my God. She also felt tremendous love and loyalty to Naomi. Whatever the reason, the results were, they went there. I want to stay with you. I want to be with you from now on. And I like that. Well, Naomi gave Ruth the opportunity to leave twice, as I said, but Ruth stayed behind stayed with her because she wanted to. You know, it was Ruth's presence in Naomi's life, I think, that made all the difference to Naomi. Because how do we say to people when they're in bad places? Sober up your life. I did that this week. I told somebody, you need to get over yourself and get a life. The way I put it is you need to get up and take a shower and put on clothes and go somewhere and do something good for somebody. Or do like me, go back and get a job. Now, my wife coached me in that, y'all, and I got to take this time out. I think it's important. But whenever you've been in that negative place, how do you get to that positive place you need to be at? Each one of us, this is the preachy side, listen up. If you've been daydreaming, listen up. This is the preachy part, all right? Each one of us has the chance to be a Ruth in somebody's life. There are people out there who are broken and hurting that you interact with and I interact with. Some of those people you can make a huge difference with. Some people have been left behind. I used to say it this simple. The boys and I, and some of them in this room, Bill and Eddie, back there at the back, we'd stand in circles outside behind the high school, and every now and then someone who didn't play ball with us, who was not really a part of our life, would wander up. You remember that person? They'd kind of wander up and all. And I tried to always make sure that I opened up the circle where I was standing. Come on in, man. Come on. They wanted to come in. They needed to come into that circle. They needed to be a part of that moment. And maybe they had never been a part of it before. We had people who wouldn't come to our class reunion because they thought we didn't appreciate them when we were in school, and so they don't appreciate us now. And some of them have died and never came back to a class reunion. There are people who are broken and hurting out there. Some of them may be in your family. Some of them may be from your past, and some of them may live in your community. I don't know who they are, where they are, but there are people that you can make a huge difference in their life. You can help take them from their depression. You can help take them from their poverty. You can help take them from their hurt and pain from where they are and put them in a better place if you're willing to do that. And you'll get blessed for it. Ruth and Naomi were blessed. Well, Naomi finally, even though she gets to Bethlehem and says, don't call me Naomi, call me Myra. I'm bitter at the whole world. She keeps on keeping on. She keeps on going. Well, then we get into the challenge of where she goes, okay? As we get into chapter 3, in verses 1 and 2, it says, now Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, talking about Ruth, my daughter, I need to seek some security for you so that it may be well with you. Now here is our kinsman. Remember kinsman. I'm going to keep saying it over and over again and try to help you understand who that person is. Now here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you have been working. She'd been out in the field where the barley was working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Well, where's Wade Bird when I need him? I don't know. I reckon he's on a boat fishing. I maybe had to stay back at the farm. But he's my resident farmer, at least one of them.
He's going to his granddaughter today.
He went to his granddaughter's church. That's being a good granddaddy. So, winnowing floor, all of that. Look, they beat the grain off the shaft, and they gathered up. They had employees to do this. But Naomi knew who he was, and she knew what they needed. Okay? In the previous chapter, Boaz was referred to as a kinsman redeemer. A kinsman redeemer. You got two women that don't have anything. You got two women that need a man. Now, remember, you can't go to that like you would today. Because all you women that jump up and say, man, I don't need a man. I don't know why I stay with the one I got. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't laugh, Jackie. It's a good little boy. You need to get him a fan to put up there to keep that sun out of his eyes. Thank you. But it wasn't like that then. That you had to have a man. That is very important for this story to unfold in the reality that it was. And a kinsman redeemer had a special place. Generally, it was someone who was a kinsperson, kin to them. Okay? So, and y'all know the story. I've said it umpteen times. You've heard it in other places. If a man died, then his brother should take his wife as his own, and if they have children, they would be honoring his brother that died, okay? This is a family thing, all right? I know we don't do this now and all, but this is how they did it because those women who had lost their husband had to have a man to take care of them, is what it amounted to. I emphasize that to you because it's important that you understand in reality where these two women were. And so in spite of all the negative, we gradually see Naomi embracing the moment, embracing the situation. And she knows that Boaz has told his helpers out in the field, you know, after he finds out who Ruth is, and he's kin to Naomi, he says to the women out there working with her and to his men that are working the cruise, y'all leave some behind, y'all make sure she gets plenty. She gets about 6 days worth in one day. So they were very gracious and generous to her. And Naomi knows that Boaz has seen Ruth and appreciated her in whatever ways he did. Maybe she was beautiful, I don't know. But he appreciated her and he looked out for her. And I lean on the fact of the connection to family that they had. Being pretty is just an extra in all of this. It seems strange to us today, but 3,000 years ago was not strange at all. All right? And so, being the next of kin, it was his responsibility to take care of them if he possibly could. Everybody don't have money. Some people are wealthy in the world, and some of them like me. That's what I say about looks. I say there's some pretty people in this world. The rest of them look like me. And there's some wealthy people in the world, and they're able to do more for people sometimes than other people are able to do. So being a kinsman may not make you a redeemer because some of them just couldn't afford to do it. And so they're hitting on Boaz, who seems to be rather strong in his farming operation, to maybe take care of them. So this is when the woman, Naomi, now she's really got it going. So Ruth, come in. So Ruth comes to her, she says, here's what you do. They're all down there, going to be down there for 3 or 4 days, processing the barley, beating it out, doing whatever you do. They would bring their helpers there. Now, unfortunately, people have been stealing since the beginning of time. So Boaz has to stay there. Now, he might not do any of the work, but he takes his sleeping bag and his pillow, and he's dressed and just stays there throughout the night. Well, while the workers are working, then you got the farmers. And those farmers get together at night and they party. And they drink and they have a good time. And so Naomi says to Ruth, look here, hon, here's what you do. At a point in time, whenever they've eaten, drank, and had a good time, and Boaz is asleep, I want you to go over there, and I want you to take his blanket and peel it back a little bit, and I want you to slide under the edge of the blanket there. Okay? Well, unless you think this is going to get real racy, it isn't. It's not going to get racy at all. And so she does that. Well, at a time in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he looks and says, what in the world? Who was there? And she says what she says to him, you know, I'm here and I want you to be my husband. I want you to be my kinsman redeemer. Is what she wants. Now, don't think he's in a pair of pajamas and they're at the Waldorf or something or other. There's people everywhere in there. He says, he talks to her, he says, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to slip on out of here before everybody else gets up and sees you. But he does give her 6 scoops of grain, tells his workers to do that as she goes away. They're partying, they're having a good time. It's a symbolic gesture. Take me as your wife. Today it would be like whenever I paid $300 and some, I think, for your diamond. Honey, this was a long time ago. And so what you do nowadays is you get down on your knee and ask for a woman's hand. You know, all women have enough sense to know this. You guys don't remember. But they're going to stick out their left hand. And what are you supposed to do? You slip the diamond on. You know that. All right. They slip the diamond on the left hand. And they say, will you marry me? Well, it's the same thing. She is wanting him to marry her. She is wanting him to take care of her. And Boaz is an interesting character because he likes her a lot. He says, but there's one who's a little closer in kin than I am. And no doubt, because of what I read in the text for today, he's a lot older than she is. Happens, right? And so he says, you may not want an older man for your husband, while you have a younger one that's really closer in line, next in line, to be your kinsman redeemer. So we need to check with him first and see if he'll take you as his wife. And so they did. The Bible doesn't make it real clear as to what had happened, but he said no. All right? So then Boaz reaches out and he takes her in that way. He says to Ruth, I'll make sure this works out for you either way, is what he really says. So skipping on to verse 14, I want to read a little bit more out of here for you. So she led his feet until morning, but got up before one person could recognize her. I need to go. I've already gone past that. Gave her the barley. Do not come back. Do not go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. He gives her what he gives her, and she takes off. So I've already kind of hit on some of that. I write notes. I pick up commentary and all, and then I do whatever I want to do, and then I get lost. What he's basically saying to her is, you ain't got to worry. This is a win-win. If that young guy don't take you, come on back, honey. I got this. You know, I will be glad to take you as my wife. You know, God blesses Naomi. Moab, death, husband and sons, bad years, lost the farm, big lien on the farm, goes back and is mad at the world, and gradually she turns herself around because there's a blessing there, and the blessings come from God, and she's serving Ruth. She gets Ruth a man. Oh, it may be a kinsman to her, somebody she knows. But Ruth, Naomi, is serving Ruth in this story. And that's why I started out today that you know people who are broken and hurting. And sometimes if you can hear through their words, if you can see through beyond their actions, then maybe God can use you to serve them, to help them to come to a better place. Maybe the best you is taking care of someone else. But you always run the risk of being rejected. Now, Diane, the first time I offered her a ring, it was a signet ring. It was my daddy's, and I gave it to her, and she held it during the ball game, basketball game, because y'all don't wear rings when you play basketball. You jam a finger, honey, you find out quick. So she kept my ring during the game. But after the game was over, we were riding on the bus, and honey, this is one of those buses where somebody's sitting right beside, yeah, I want you to keep my ring as long as you wanted to. Because it was that loud on that stinking raggedy bus that we were riding. True story. And she shook her head no. She wasn't going to go steady with me. Well, she was a little scared of me, she told me later on. I don't know why. But later on, she gave me this ring, and that was the one that mattered the most. And I want you to know that there is some risk. There's some risk in serving others. And some of us are willing to run the risk. And some of us are more concerned about getting our feelings hurt. Thanks be to God for risk takers, for those who are willing to enter in to the pain and suffering of others. Since my buddy Bill's here today, we were born the same month. True story. I went to college. He went to the jungles of Vietnam, even before his brother, who graduated a year ahead of him. And his brother told me one day, Bo's his name, Bo said that Bill rescued a whole village. He said if they hadn't have been Vietnamese, if they'd have been Americans, he'd have got the Congressional Medal of Honor. I talked to Bill about that yesterday morning whenever he called me, and we were just talking like we do because we're lifetime friends. And he said, well, if you were there, you just had to do what you had to do. Bo says he's a superhero. Bill says, I was there, and I did what I needed to do. It's a wonderful thing to have people who are willing to serve people who are broken and hurting. Amen. And I want y'all to go in peace today. Next week, I'm going to finish up the story of Ruth. And it's getting better all the time. Find somebody to bring to church. We have people that are hurting around our church right now. I hurt around our church because we've been inside. We've been outside. We've worn masks. We've not worn masks. We wore masks again. Today, I don't have one on. It hasn't been easy through the COVID. I was sharing with Kendall and Jackie some of this yesterday. And in the midst of it all, while some of us have held the course, others have found reason to not be here. I want you to make some calls today and remind them that we're here. We need everybody here. We need God's servants here. It's important that we stay the course of faith in the life of the church. Let's stand and sing together our final hymn.
Forever waves of grain, forever
Never think that you have arrived, but always be becoming. Always be moving in the direction of a blessing from God. Go in peace, and may the peace of Christ go with you. Amen.
Yeah.